I believe eBay is hiding these shipping fees from sellers on the platform, and they have a good reason too. No one likes getting hit with a fee after the fact. But if you have been using eBay shipping labels, there's a really good chance that you have been hit with this hidden fee, and you might not even be aware of it. Now, to be fair, eBay isn't the one that's charging us these fees, and I don't think that they're technically making any money off of charging these hidden fees. It's actually the shipping providers that are charging these hidden fees. Yes, I am talking about the dreaded underpaid label fee that you can receive as an eBay seller on the platform. What is an underpaid shipping label charge? Well, it's actually pretty simple. When you go and purchase a label on eBay or on any other platform, you have to input the weight and the dimensions of the item. And if you get one of those wrong, you could technically get a label that is underpaid, as in a cheaper label than the item that you're shipping out. So if you're shipping out an item that weighs 5 pounds and you put in 2 pounds as the weight, when you ship that out, that shipping provider might notice that difference and say, hey, you underpaid for this shipping label. And a underpaid shipping label charge is simply that. It's the difference between what you paid for the label and what the actual item weighs and the actual dimensions of the item when the shipping provider receives the item. And yes, of course, if you underestimate or if you go in and put lower amounts for the sizes and the weights, you technically owe the shipping provider money, and they should be able to collect that fee from you. Now, you might be thinking, this isn't a problem for me. I always input the correct weight and I always input the correct dimensions, so I don't even need to watch this video. However, there's a little thing that's happening where shipping providers are getting it wrong. Even if you're weighing and measuring your items correctly, there's a chance that you're still being hit with these underpaid shipping label charges. Now, on eBay, there's typically 3 shipping providers that you can use: USPS, UPS, and FedEx. Now, USPS, for me personally, I don't see this as an issue. Typically, they're very lenient with their sizes and their weights. Unless you're being untruthful, it's pretty rare for me to get hit with those fees. Now, UPS will occasionally hit me with the fees, even if I'm weighing and measuring the items correctly. But FedEx, for me, is by far the worst shipping provider when it comes to hitting me with these underpaid shipping label charges. When I ship FedEx, it's kind of a shot in the dark. I put in the correct dimensions, the correct weights, and I sit there and wonder if I'm going to end up having to pay more at a later date because they say that I measured or weighed the item incorrectly. Now, I know all 3, USPS, UPS, and FedEx, will occasionally hit sellers with underpaid label fees. So if you have been hit with one, drop a comment down below about whether you actually weighed the item, whether you measured the item, whether everything was correct, and what you did to fight that underpaid shipping label charge. Now, for me personally, I weigh and measure every single item that's going out. I don't guess anything. I actually weigh it and I actually measure it. I've done this from day one. And I think you should too. You shouldn't be guessing on weights and you shouldn't be guessing on sizes. And if you are, then you should be expecting to be hit with these underpaid charges because you don't actually know what you're shipping out the door. It's our responsibility as the seller and someone buying these labels to put in the correct size and weight for the shipping labels. But when it comes to FedEx, they were hitting me all the time. Every time I would send out golf clubs or baseball bats or anything big, because that's typically the only thing that I use FedEx for is large items or extremely heavy items. So all these large and extremely heavy items, they were constantly hitting me with an underpaid fee. So I started adding more to the weight. If the item weighed 5 pounds, I would put 7 pounds. If the item was 38 inches, I would put that the item was 45 inches. Whatever it was, I was always adding a bunch of extra inches and a bunch of extra weight to the item. Now, you might be thinking, why would I do that? Because if they charge you the underpayment fee, then it kind of just evens out. Well, it doesn't, because when you're buying the shipping label from the start, you actually get a discount, like a really big discount. When you're buying labels through eBay or Pirate Ship or whatever platform you're using, you're typically getting a discount over the counter rate. If you've ever stood in line and watched someone buy a shipping label at UPS or at FedEx or at USPS, you'll notice that they pay a lot to ship these items out because they're paying the counter rates. we get discounted rates through eBay or through whatever shipping provider you're using. So when you're putting it in, you're getting that discount. However, when they hit you with that underpayment charge, they're actually charging you the full counter rate. So it goes above and beyond. So for me personally, I'd rather pay a little bit extra at the discounted rate than end up paying a bunch extra when it's underpaid. Because for some reason, when it's underpaid, they hit you with every possible fee that they can and they remove any of that discount, so it negates itself. So for me, I always want to be adding extra when it comes to shipping with FedEx. I personally have found that I don't need to do that with USPS and with UPS, that it's pretty rare that they get it wrong, but FedEx, for me, they're just notorious with hitting me with these. So when I do overestimate these fees with FedEx, I have noticed that I do receive overpaid charges, like the complete opposite. So I end up receiving a refund from FedEx. So a lot of times, even when I do add these extra weights and extra dimensions to the package, I do end up receiving a few dollars back. So for me, it's worth the risk to just add a little bit extra just so that I'm always covered. And I know for a fact that the measurements and the weights were absolutely correct, and then I usually get a refund on the back end, versus going out and taking the chance and being hit with those underpaid fees that are at the full counter rate. In fact, just this last week, I had an underpaid shipping label charge on my eBay account for $32 from FedEx for something I shipped a couple days before. This was a huge amount. This was almost double the original amount that I had paid to ship this item. And once again, I of course added extra weight and added extra measurements to it. So I know this item was actually covered and I should have been getting a discount or a refund back from FedEx, but instead they charged me an additional $32 to ship this item out. And there's really not a whole lot I can do about it. And my problem lies with a few different issues. Number one, it seems like they are charging us those full counter rates when you get underpaid. So when you get that underpaid label, for me, for that $32, it might have been an extra $5-6 to ship that item if I had gotten the measurements wrong. Now, I did not, and I actually overestimated it. However, even if I did underestimate it by an inch or two or by a pound, then it should have only added $5 or $6. Instead, they hit me with $32, which just negates the whole purpose of using FedEx to ship these heavy items in the first place, because if you're going to hit me with these fees afterwards, then I might as well have paid more and used a service like UPS or USPS. Number two, eBay hides this from us. Like 9 times out of 10, I don't get an email, I don't get a message, I don't get any kind of alert. Like they just take this fee in silence and I don't even see it. The only way that I have consistently been able to find it is by paying attention to how much my payments are. Sometimes I'll log onto the app and I'll be like, okay, this is how much I'm getting paid. And then like the next day I log on and I'll like notice a decrease. And I'm like, well, I sold some things. Like, why is it decreasing? And then I like look on there and sure enough, I was hit with an underpaid charge. No notification, no email, no anything from eBay. I don't know why they're doing this. Now, occasionally you will get an email, especially if it's USPS. Typically, I receive an email with the fact that I am being charged an additional amount, but it's not every single time. And I don't know why this isn't just an automatic message that eBay sends us so that we're aware that we're being charged that. That's why I'm calling this a hidden fee, because no one seems to want to talk about it. I think something that's worth mentioning here is just the fact that FedEx is actually a sponsor of the eBay Open. So they seem to have a pretty good business relationship. And I'm not inferring anything here, but they have a good business relationship and they seem to be able to charge these sellers these fees, and eBay's looking the other way and not even letting sellers know about it. It seems awfully fishy to me. But moving on. Number 3. There is no good way to fight this. Now, yeah, I'm sure someone's going to write down in the comments that they called eBay and eBay removed the fee. Yes, I've actually done that as well too. And occasionally you can call, get a customer service rep to remove the fee or look into it or submit a report. But a lot of times you won't hear anything, or they'll just simply say contact FedEx or contact UPS, or you'll have to submit a claim. Now, if it comes from USPS and you do get an email, typically in that email, there is a place to actually dispute it. But when it comes to FedEx, like, good luck. I've never won one from FedEx, even though every time, if it's a significant amount, I call eBay, complain, they say they open a case, and then I never hear anything. To me, it's worth reaching out to eBay and seeing if I can get that money back. But when it comes to FedEx, it just seems to be gone, and there is no actual way to fight it with FedEx. I've tried calling FedEx and saying, hey, I got this label here. You guys charge me an underpay fee, and they won't even have it. They'll like tell you to just contact eBay. I've been hung up on by FedEx. Like, the customer service from FedEx is really bad. But then you call up eBay and eBay will say something like, oh, well, it's up to FedEx and we'll submit a report and blah, blah, blah. And then you never hear anything. So why does this happen in the first place? If I'm measuring things and I'm putting the correct weights and measurements in the label when I'm purchasing the label, why am I being hit by these fees? Why are sellers being hit by these fees and they're not even aware of it? Well, it comes down to a few different things from my understanding. From my understanding is they're using computer systems to scan the packages and know roughly what the sizes are. So the computer could be making a mistake, and then they're also using scales so the package slides on rollers through whatever warehouse or whatever, and it's being weighed consistently throughout. Now, maybe sometimes two packages get hung up, maybe two packages fall on the scale at the same time. Whatever it is, it's triggering something. They must have systems in place to protect against this, but there's occasionally a few packages that slide through and then we get hit with these underpaid charges and we end up having to pay for their mistake essentially. So what is my plan moving forward? Well, number one, I will only ship FedEx if I absolutely have to. I ship the majority, probably about 90% of my items through USPS Ground Advantage, and it works just fine. I rarely will ever see any kind of charge from USPS. They do a pretty good job. The packages kind of take a whole trip around the country, but that's a whole nother story. As far as it comes to the shipping label and hidden fees and stuff, they don't seem to be hitting me as frequently. So I just use FedEx for anything that's big and heavy. Typically, the postal service is pretty expensive when it comes to large items or heavy items. So any of those items, I will either ship UPS or FedEx, just depending on which one's cheaper. So I will continue to only use FedEx if it's the last resort and the only way to ship a large item for cheap. Number two, I will continue to overestimate my shipping labels. So I will continue to add pounds and I will continue to add inches to everything I ship with FedEx. Like I said before, there's no need to do it with every shipping provider, but if you're receiving a bunch from the same one, try that and see if it decreases. Like I said, I'm actually receiving overpaid refunds from FedEx at the same time that I'm receiving these underpaid ones. So they're kind of all over the place. They're obviously scanning and looking at packages because they're catching that I'm adding a bunch of inches, but then another one they just get completely wrong. So I will continue to do this because I would rather pay a little bit more at the discounted rate and have that possibility of a refund than end up being hit with that super large charge of the underpaid label. Number three, I'm going to start taking my packages to the actual FedEx location. This was a recommendation I was told, so I'm going to give it a try. I was typically just dropping my FedEx packages off at my local Walgreens. It was right down the street, so it was super easy for me. But someone had said that if you take it to the actual shipping provider, that it will be less likely to be flagged as the wrong size or whatever. I don't know how true that is, and I don't have enough information to say yes it is or no it's not. I've only taken a few to the actual FedEx location, so I don't have any feedback on that yet. But that's what I'm going to be trying moving forward. Number four, I'm going to pay attention to my payments. eBay is hiding these fees for some reason. They're not sending out emails. They're not sending out messages. I look through my settings. I don't see any place where I can turn that setting on and off. And I don't know why they're not notifying us other than the fact that it probably piss people off and then they get a bunch of phone calls. So for me, I'm going to continue to monitor my payments. If I see a drop in payment, I'm going to look and see why that is. The only other way that I've consistently been able to find these underpaid shipping charges is by going to my seller hub. Once you're on the seller hub, you go down and you click on payments, then you go to all transactions, and then you have to sort by shipping labels, and then you have to scroll through all these shipping labels looking for the one that says underpaid. It's a super inconvenient system, and I haven't found a better way to figure it out. But occasionally, if I can't figure out why my payments are less, or if I'm just curious if I have any underpayment ones, I'll scroll through a few pages and see if I see that underpaid statement, especially if I've been shipping a lot with FedEx, or if you're shipping a lot with a provider that you're having trouble with. If you've enjoyed this video, I think you're gonna love this one, so go ahead and give it a click.